ghostly mark. Cobwebs twine and shadows dance in this twilight somber trance. Candles flicker, weary wicks, ancient echoes, time's cruel tricks. Marble figures, frozen pose, amidst the silent sorrow grows. Whispering shadows, secrets keep in the depths where night meets sleep. Underneath the velvet gloom, guardians of the haunted room. Chandeliers in crystal tears reflect forgotten yesteryears. Softly chanting distant cries, through the arches sorrow sighs. Gargoyles watch with stony gaze, guardians of endless maze. Pipe organ's breath begins to rise, filling air with mournful ties. Whispering shadows, secrets keep in the depths where night meets sleep. Underneath the velvet gloom, guardians of the haunted room.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lady Red of the Black Pants Legion, here to do some more writing stuff, and with any luck, everything is working, and chat can hear me, despite OBS trying to be OBS when I was setting up today, and also Lictor's here. Say hi, Lictor.
Hello, hi Victor.
How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous.
I am
I
very
am.
pleased to hear that. So far, so
I,
good.
I
That's always nice.
yes, yeah. I just had a mental image of the first size-sensitive human on Shoal taking a dive, coming up for air, rolling into a fetus, and just mumbling to themselves. It speaks. It speaks. It speaks. It speaks. It speaks. It's like the water. They sing. I
Yeah.
have no idea.
Those humans that do develop a bit of size sensitivity are going to have a hell of a time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Insane.
Bully Snake, we do have maps. We're going to be looking at that this week. And we have 22 war crimes to read over, which is not quite the full amount that you guys suggested, but is the majority and all the ones that I liked the best and seemed the most practicable. And the sort of things that we could ban or decide were just, no, this is normal warfare, that's fine.
It's
We've got some art this week from Tired German as well to have a look at. And yeah, just an absolute ton of stuff to do. Some reviews of things that I wrote over the last week. And it's just going to be all Shoal this week. Just lots and lots of Shoal. So I hope that's okay with you guys.
yeah.
sweet. On phone, slow to respond. That is fine, Introspective 90. We are in no rush. Please enjoy your phone call and don't rush on our account. Lictor's been very helpful this week in helping to refine down the map that we currently have. There's going to be all sorts of things to move around on it. We're going to be doing a heck of a lot of stuff with all of that. I think my order of operations is I do have a somber note I need to start on this week. So we'll get that out of the way first. Then I think what I'm going to do is move into a review of our 5 races because they've been expanded quite significantly. After that, I think I want to look at the Warcrimes list with you guys. Actually, we might do those in the other order. Might do Warcrimes first. Then we'll review our species because what I really want to do this week is to focus on what major cities we think we have. And I think we need to have a sort of major city for each race where they sort of would have really started their individual civilizations before we then do all of our multicultural ones. And that's not to say that the species independent cities won't be multicultural. They will be by this point, but I feel like it would make sense that, you know, the Podlands had a city that was just Podlands originally, and, you know, people have migrated there since, now that we have a multicultural society across the whole moon. So we'll do that. And the reason I want to do that is I think setting down those locations and putting them onto a visual map so that we're all sort of on the same page of what's where on the moon will allow us to get those fine details we need to make the criticism of the war section, the Forge Wars, easier to resolve. So that's my plan for this week, and I have stolen Lictor to help with it because he's excellent. And Aiden will probably be joining us shortly. I did see all of the redeems we had at the start of stream. Thank you very much for those. I do have a posture. It's terrible. I've had a water break and I've stretched. I have not administered pets as yet because the dogs are currently at the park. When Aiden gets back with them and joins us, I will give them pets at that point. Right, so all that said, that's where we're at for this week. And I did say I was going to start off on something somber, and I have just mentioned the dog. So I am just going to launch into that, and I'll probably mention it once more before the end of stream. But there is something I would like to bring to the attention of chat for anybody who might be interested. I've cleared it with Diggs, and for those of you who were here yesterday for Aiden's stream, you already know. For people who've already heard this, this is not aimed at you. I'm not trying to get people to open wallets who've already been asked to. This is just to continue spreading the word, and this will probably be the last stream it's mentioned on. But as many of you know, we have 3 wonderful beagles who are our life and we adore to bits. They're our children, and we've been blessed to be able to share them with the BPL and the auxiliary ever since Aiden and I joined. And we love our dogs, and they love you guys, and we get to share pup dates and wonderful things. For those who've been here since the beginning, you know that our journey was Ceres landed in our lives. She then needed a playmate, so we went all the way to Texas to get her Pip as a boyfriend. We took ourselves off to an ethical breeder that had diverse beagles, and we met the most lovely couple who raise beagles on their farm out in Texas, and that's like the majority of the work that they do out there. They also keep cattle, but they breed beagles, and they are wonderful beagles. While we were up there, we were able to see their entire operation, the barn dominium they were building for the beagles to move into to be even more comfortable. And very recently, just after our puppies were born, we were pleased to let everybody know that the barn dominium was finished, and they've gotten a complete 100% best you can possibly be certification for breeding dogs, which is wonderful. And of course, yeah, we had the Lily Bridges who run Quail Ridge Beagle breeding up there. They were on the phone with us when Ceres went into labour and helped us through that process so that we made sure that our little girl was happy and healthy. And you guys got to enjoy PupCam on stream while we were still down in Florida, and we still had all 3 babies, and they were going through their early weeks of life. So Quail Ridge Beagles is a place that's very near and dear to both mine and Aiden's hearts. We really believe in the operation out there and the people behind it. They are lovely, wonderful people who really care about their animals. So we were devastated last week when we heard the news that at the end of May they had a torrential storm pass through and were hit with a microburst. They had 100-mile-an-hour plus winds just running straight, and their brand new barn dominium, 40% of it was just ripped out of the ground, and the pillars that had been sunk into the ground to hold the entire barn up were just tossed across the kennels like sticks and just wiped out a good portion of their operation up there. Thankfully, by an act of God, no humans or dogs were hurt during this horrific storm that just descended on them out of nowhere. They were expecting the rainstorm, but the microburst, you can't predict those. So they had basically a tiny tornado pass across their barn dominium and part of their cattle fields, and it has wiped out about $120,000 worth of infrastructure. Unfortunately, insurance working the way that it works, insurance is only going to cover about a third of that for them. So these lovely people, it's a couple in their late 50s, are currently trying to recover from this completely unexpected issue on their own, and they have a massive gap that they are trying to cover. So they have a GoFundMe. As I say, I did ask Diggs if I could promote it on my stream, and Iden on his yesterday. I'm going to pop it up at the top of the page. I'm going to put a link to it. They are currently trying to raise 75k. Obviously, I do not expect the auxiliary and the BPL to do that. And in fact, I don't expect a single person here to give a single penny that you don't have comfortably in your budget. I don't like asking people to open their wallets, especially for just, some random schmuck on the internet telling you to. But for those of you who perhaps have a little bit of money you'd like to put towards a good cause, or if you have somewhere where you would like to share the GoFundMe for people who might wish to, that is the link that will take you to the Lily Bridges GoFundMe. Every little bit helps. They've already raised about 10% of what they need. And we did have the wonderful news yesterday that they have enough of their replacement shelter put up for the dogs to come home. Because what they did after the microburst hit was they fostered some of their beagles out to local families until they could get the mess cleaned up. All of their beagles are currently returning home, but they are looking at having to sell some of their cattle to cover the deficit. And, it's a lot of hard work, and it's heartbreaking because these are people who really don't deserve to have to handle this. This was one of those things where it wasn't that they did something stupid or they didn't plan for it. They had everything they could in place, and nature just did what nature does. So if you were thinking of perhaps, donating some money to Mr. Train this week and you feel like popping it over to Quail Ridge Beagles instead, it would be greatly appreciated. Insofar as my word counts for anything, I can guarantee that it will go to a good cause, to people who I genuinely believe in. And if you would like to help, it will be incredibly appreciated. But once again, please do not spend money that you are not comfortable spending. It's there as a, hey, if you'd like to. It's not there as a thou shalt. So that is our somber start for today. But the good news is all of the dogs are fine. The humans are fine. The dogs are returning home. And there is hope that Quail Ridge will continue on. So thank you for listening to my sad news. Now let's move over into Shoal. It sounds like the air element type of attack of a pyroclastic stream. Yeah, sort of. Microburst is short-lived, concentrated flow, wind straight down. The opposite of a tornado, it doesn't spin. Yeah, and it just ripped through. The GoFundMe has photographs where you can see what happened, and the Lily Bridges are being very good about keeping people updated on what they're doing, where the money's going to, and how the recovery is going. So, if you want updates for what your money is doing, that is there. Right. Sad stuff out of the way. Thank you to anybody who does decide to donate. I appreciate you all. You're all very kind people. Let's do some Shoal stuff and have a good time this afternoon and start our weekend off the right way. I'd say with Warcrimes, but it's going to be with Warcrimes. Let's start with Warcrimes.
Yes, let's do the cheerful part first, where no one gets hurt.
Yes, Warcrimes are very fun when they're not real.
Yes.
Alrighty.
I have more to say, but I will stop now. Um, let's so we have a list.
Yes,
We have
disclaimer,
a
please do
list.
not commit war crimes in real life. You will go to jail
Yes,
forever.
yes, do not, do not. As a professional, do not.
Many war crimes have been imagined since last week. Now, full disclosure, I do not have every single war crime you guys suggested on here. Some of them felt a little bit duplicative, so I've tried to condense some of them into one. Some of them didn't seem quite practicable. There's one set that I'm going to ask you guys about at the end because I didn't quite understand how it would work, and I would love for you guys to educate me. And yeah, some of them I think would just be things that would just happen in war and wouldn't necessarily need to be on this list. But I do have 22 of the wonderful suggestions you guys came up with. A couple of them I've given slightly different names to, and we can decide whether we like the current name, whether we need to change it, or whatever we want to do. And what I would like to do is we're going to assign to each one whether it is a war crime that is banned by the Shoal Convention, as somebody labelled it, whether it's information encouragement that definitely happens, but just nobody, admits happens, or whether it's sadly impractical and just doesn't happen. So those are going to be our three categories we're looking at. And what we have to remember is for it to be a war crime, it needs to be something that is so catastrophic to either the environment or to common decency that it needs banning globally. If it doesn't need
One
banning
more thing.
globally, then it's not a war crime. It's just sparkling conflict,
Yes,
and that's fine.
it's sparkling Prussian tactics.
War crimes are only fun when they're imaginary or affect Capellans. Correct. Carry on. None of that went
Very
too
good.
far. I mean, we're listing war crimes. The whole point is that they go too far, and hopefully the way we've worded things is not going to upset Twitch, especially as all of this is fictional. We are
The
doing
problem,
this so that we can write interesting conflicts in our fictional world.
I am going to put one more caveat on our list to make everything more complicated. We're going to specify where and when, or at least not specify, but we're going to give outline of where and when did that happen to become a bannable offense. Because the problem with war crimes is that usually people don't, unless they become a story, nobody thinks that they should ban it because no sane person thinks they need to. It's
Yeah,
like,
so it needs to either have
don't
happened
force feed
or
people dot
almost
dot dot.
happened. Yeah,
Exactly. Don't force feed people dot dot dot. Does not need mentioning because everybody understands.
yeah. It's never a war crime the first time. Sadly true, Cookie Mama.
Yes,
Baron of Derpshire, I'm sure some of yours have gotten in. Your orc's name is fantastic, and you were responsible for the Shoal convention. Yes, thank you.
yes. I will just
Sparkling
point out
Canadian tactics. Yes.
the Sholodomor, the Sholodomor would not rightly be a war crime. It will be just crimes against Shoalies of Sholomites.
All right. Well, Aiden's just getting back with the dogs, so I'm sure they're going to come in and interrupt me any minute now, and then Aiden will join us. But let's get started on our list of war crimes, and we will go from there. These are not in any particular order. I mean, the closest order that they're in is how they were submitted over in the auxiliary. So this isn't based on any preference or anything on my thing. We're just going to go through them. So, our very first one we had was hydrochloric gas bombs. Produced from gas trapped inside underwater caverns, these bombs turn water into hydrochloric acid. Devastating to anything that breathes it in, shoaly or animal alike. How do we feel about this one?
That sounds fucked up.
Aiden says this
Why
sounds
is
fucked up.
why is that a war crime?
Well, this is what we need to decide. Is it a war crime or is this just a normal part of warfare?
I'm going to go about it. Why would in a chemically or even alchemically based society, um, the idea of using chemicals as warfare uh does not sound like a war crime. It sounds like standard procedure.
Okay, so Bully Sake says basically mustard gas. Yes, that was my thought when I read this one. I was like, yeah, it sounds like something that would therefore definitely happen, but is it bannable? Is it not? And of course, one of the
Yeah,
things we have to remember here is if we're going to talk about real world analogies, is there are certain things armies aren't allowed to do that we let the police do. So,
exactly. Things that are very okay when the police does it to your own citizens, but not okay when you do it to somebody else's.
yes.
I, I,
Gremos brings
I,
up the thing that made me want to include it on this list for us to make a decision on whether it's a war crime or not. The problem with this is because we're on an underwater setting, is just how badly this will mess up the local environment. Tired German thinks it should be restricted weaponry but not a war crime. So, what do you think, Lichter? Where would you put it?
I would. Okay, here's my suggestion. It wasn't a war crime, and then someone did it on such a level it absolutely annihilated a localized coral reef.
Hmm.
And then they said, you know what? No, 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 no. That, I mean, what pushed it to becoming a war crime wasn't the moral objection, it was a specific story that made it
Okay.
into a war crime.
Let's see what chat has to say about that. What do you think, chat? Does that sound reasonable?
I'm I'm going to go to Archon and say nukes are war crimes? Presumably, but every nation has a nuclear doctrine, so everybody considers that the weapon exists and they think about using it because it's useful. So,
Yeah,
question mark?
so we know that the Shoal equivalent of a nuke is a quiet bomb, and that's absolutely a war crime. So,
Oh yeah, anything that's capable of taking out an entire shoaly reef of coral is banned. Nobody wants to see reefs destroyed. That's the major issue.
hello,
Uh,
puppies.
okay, Bully Snake, I take your point. I think that again, I think it didn't begin because if you consider the amount of damage pressure bombs do underwater,
Hmm.
uh, everything dying around is kind of par for the course. The idea you can kill very few people with a bomb in an in a localized position is very hard to do underwater.
Of course they did. Aiden is telling me that the dogs found the dirtiest part of the creek to lay in before he brought them home. So, I like what Slithis has to say here. Sometimes it's a question of scale. What Germany did in Belgium during World War One wasn't strange for warfare, but it was done on such a huge scale that it crossed a line, which goes back to what you were saying, Lichter, with it was initially restricted weaponry until it was used at such a scale that everyone went, no, enough is enough. So, okay, I think we'll list it as yes, it's a war crime if used like near a reef or where it has large scale. Otherwise, it's restricted weaponry.
Mhm. I think it deleted a large bronze coral library, and the cetaceans just said, "Okay, we are spreading the word. It's a war crime now.
Yeah.
We just we just no."
Yeah, and Vera Thragner brings up the point that, yeah, it's going to be hard to direct. You're as likely to end up with hydrochloric acid on enemies, allies, civilians. Yeah, okay, so I think we're good on that one. It is a war crime in context. Otherwise, it's restricted
Yes,
weaponry. But either way, very nasty. Good job, whoever came up with
yes.
that one. Right, broil nets is our next one. Enclosed areas under power that heat the water inside steadily, boiling anything trapped within. How do we feel about this one?
That's a war crime, but that's hugely impractical.
I do think it's impractical. I feel it's the sort of thing that's possibly used as information encouragement uh, in localized cities on individuals, I think would be. Mo, we will get to some biological algae weapons.
I mean, it's a crime, yes.
Do Shoalies agree on what is or is not a war crime? Could some be so offensive to some cultures and not to others? I think when we get into narrative, that will be the case. But we're looking at this as like the Shoal Convention. These are the things that are sort of universally in inverted commas agreed upon, but are not necessarily felt the same way within individual nations. There's going to be some play there.
Okay, so we have hydrochloric air bombs. We have cooking Shoalies alive.
Yeah.
Cooking sentients alive is definitely a war crime, but it is also not a. It's not a weapon of war.
So I'm just going to make the observation. The broil net sounds like what you would see in the Shoaly equivalent of the Predator movies. Because you know how the Predator has the net that just contracts and cubes whatever is inside it?
Mm-hmm.
I think we just discovered the Shoaly Predator equivalent for their action movies.
What was that?
The broil net.
Okay, so I think what we're deciding then is that the broil net is going to be an information encouragement. I'm just going to put the I because that makes my life easy. I don't have to write as much. Information encouragement, it's probably, looked down on, but not an actual war crime. The Shoal Convention doesn't ban it per se, but yeah.
It's just generally a crime.
Yeah, impractical,
like
but good for police encouragement. Okay, so we know what we're doing with that one. Alright, our next one is filament bombs. Time-delayed explosives that release tiny filaments of glass and crystal into the water, which shred gills and cause gill rot. Initially, gill rot is a response to the sharp shards, as microlacerations cause pain, inflammation, and a cough. This leads to second-stage infection in the wounds with shortness of breath and fever. Eventually, this leads to tissue necrosis, potential sepsis, and death in its third stage. Some rare variants of this bomb include shards of Parry and Temps coral. Where these are present, horrific hallucinations and compulsions can accompany the above stages and lead to a fourth stage, wherein the infected victim seeks areas of heavy traffic to spread the infections they have developed before they pass away. This is a slight edit to the original entry, because I don't think we had decided that we definitively had parasitic coral or not. It's not listed in our coral section, so I just tweaked it slightly to fit with the lore that we've previously established in the compendium. What do we feel about this one?
I didn't. You first.
Still cooling down from dogs.
Aiden is still cooling down from dogs. He will join us in a minute.
Also just realized that I've been muted.
You have in fact been muted, yes.
I would go so far as to say this is an absolute war crime because of its indiscriminate nature and the fact that it can go anywhere at all times. There's no way to control who is getting hit or why. Using that on anything that might have a civilian population, just there's no way to control it. If you let it loose somewhere, the streams themselves will carry it around and everything will die.
Mm-hmm. And it's also just unconscionable. It's a horrible thing to do to someone.
Yeah.
Which we've got quite a few of those.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It seems like chat is agreeing. War crime, banned weapon whose use is a war crime, it's indiscriminate as hell. War crimes, since areas could become uninhabitable, you'd flare the weapon up again. Filaments would be limited in scope and time of effect, so it's inherently restricted, but it's super horrific. Okay?
Yeah, I think it's a war crime, and I think there were multiple stories where just either units were destroyed over weeks of horrifying pain, or just the thing is, this is the sort of stuff people go home to talk about and then die, so it becomes a war crime much more easily.
Yep. So congratulations to whoever wrote filament bombs. It's a war crime. All right, next one.
Congratulations, introspective. Well done.
Urchin bombs. Explosives filled with toxic darts, either taken directly from deadly urchins or manufactured using the toxins of other species into artificial needles. Delivers deadly doses of toxin on contact to varying effects depending on the toxins used. What do we think? War crime?
Banned. Not a war crime.
Amazing Gaming Official asks, what writing program is that? This is Scrivener. It is my absolute favourite writing program. I swear by it. I live by it. It's by Literature and Latte. I adore it. I'm not endorsed by Scrivener. I'm not sponsored, but everybody should give it a try if you are interested in writing. They do a 30-day free trial, which is not just, 30 days from the date you apply. It's 30 days of use. And if you like it, it's a very reasonable price. Right, let's see what people have to say about this. Banned by international treaty, but also everyone still makes and uses them. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, sounds like cluster bombs. Like it's bad,
Biochemical
but
landmine, yes.
I don't think that. I think with how robust most Shoaly biologies are, especially if you're taking the serotinoids, um, the idea of using a bit of poison to get the job done to just immobilize people, or I mean, I don't think the Shoalies have the idea of you must give the enemy a fighting chance to stay alive. You need to somehow limit yourself from killing fighting forces. I don't think they have that high-minded sort of thinking. They're thinking, okay, to put down a serotinoid in its shell, just punching through it with some shrapnel ain't going to do it. We need to put some poison just to slow them down.
And I think toxins are a lot more going to be, a part of Shoaley society, as chat is also suggesting. So I feel like these are a frowned upon weapon. And for certain toxins, that's where they become banned. There are certain toxins you're not supposed to use. But at the same time, every nation probably has some tucked away somewhere.
I
I
think
was gonna make
I think just everything that's virulent would be banned and abhorred. Everything that's just makes the weapon more effective on a singular basis is going to be likely monitored, but not outright driven to the horrific level of a war crime.
Yeah, I would think that depending on payload, you would actually see some of these in riot suppression roles for incapacitating toxins that won't leave a individual permanently disabled, but will absolutely leave you writhing around unable to control your muscles for a few minutes to a few hours. Yeah, like Ark and Eric are saying, it's probably going to be the chemicals themselves that are banned as opposed to the delivery mechanism, because we're talking something that's small enough that it's not going to cause widespread devastation unless you load it with something that's specifically meant to be virulent, like you were saying, Lichter. So, unless it's a chemical that's meant to spread and spread wildly, or it's some kind of chemical that is meant to cause permanent debilitating harm that doesn't kill, I would think they'd probably let this one slide, albeit with careful monitoring to make sure nobody puts a payload that's unacceptable in their grenades.
Yeah, so the notes I've made are a common part of war, but certain toxins are banned. Nevertheless, most nations have a variety, some of which are probably not legal, but that's intersea politics for you.
I like it.
Okay, let's move on to our next one, which is one there I changed the name. But we will see what you guys think of this. Sputterers. Prisoners of war return to their camp as a demoralization tactic. Sputterers suffer from psionic burnout after being forced into froth repeatedly, either by psionic force or from pill consumption.
Yes, that is a war crime.
Yeah, I mean, now we're talking about the treatment of prisoners, and that's going to be a different scale from banned weapons. This is criminal actions against the sentient beings themselves. Yeah, like Edgau says, you're killing POWs.
That's
That's
universally known
yeah.
as a no-no.
Yep. And the one immediately below it, just peeking ahead, is going to be very similar.
Well, patience. We've got an awful lot of horrific, crimes against humanity to get through, and we need
I'm
to celebrate the fact that it's a war crime. You guys are terrible. Yay!
You guys are monsters.
I think that the way that happened is the stations. The remind me of the station's name. The
The
whale people,
oh god, brain doing the thing. Salacians.
Salacians. I think the Salacians had at one point had a few of their hand organisms returned to them mangled in a way that it did not allow them to connect psionically anymore. And that was the point where they decided, no, no, we don't care. We got them back alive. That's not that. No,
Yep. Way beyond the
it's like,
pale, deliberately inducing froth will be unconscionable to a psychic species. Yep. 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 It's a war crime! Let's read the next one.
yay,
Mern
spies.
gazing, which I adjusted the name slightly because we originally had sun gazing, but we know our star is called Mern, and I wanted to bring that element back in, so Mern gazing. During Shoal's lambent seasons, when the sun is up, prisoners of war are taken to the surface and bound to floating platforms to drift under the sun until they expire. For some, the change in their native depth itself can cause expiration in painful order, but for others, explosives or other baited trap measures may be put in place so anyone attempting to rescue the stranded is also killed in the attempt.
That's a war crime.
That's a war crime.
I mean, that's a war crime.
For the same reasons as the last one. It's a war crime.
Yeah, it's a war crime.
Crimes,
Yes,
crimes.
yes,
Yay! It's a war crime!
yes. You're not only killing POWs, you're killing them with extra steps. I don't understand why people would do that, but then again, I do know people who would do that. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
sometimes you just hate the other guy that much that you want them to suffer on the way out.
The war for the mind
Zork,
is
you're a
as
horrible
important
person.
as the war for the flesh.
Precisely.
Yep, this
Yeah.
was Zorks. This was one of Zorks. There's quite a few of Zorks in here. Alright, next we have Drowners. Areas seeded with clear fishing line to entangle anything passing through. Once the lines are disturbed and snare a victim, weight at the bottom often drops, dragging the ensnared victims into the depths. Many creatures perish either from being unable to move and pass water over their gills, so they suffocate, or from the increase in pressure as they descend. Rarely, something similar has been deployed in the deeps using jellyfish bulbs, forcing an ascent on the victims to similar results.
That's just bubbling Prussian tactics.
Yeah, this one sounds very much like what you would see in a insurgency situation, the equivalent of punji traps and rope snares. I don't know if I'd call it a war crime, but it's definitely something that the more civilized people are going to look at and go, "That's fucked up, man."
But they're going to
Yeah.
suggest shoot a guy.
Slithis says not a war crime, just a nasty weapon. Amazing Gaming Official, we have been working on this project in 2-hour slots once a week since the start of January. We have a compendium of about 45,000 words at the moment that we've put together, and we are still working on. The intention, once we finish our compendium and fully write out our setting, is to produce an illustrated compendium for people to have access to and write stories from. And then I'm probably going to be really ridiculous and attempt to write a book with chat. Which, that sounds like the dumbest thing we could possibly do, so we should definitely do it.
Absolutely.
With Night Owl, honestly, this feels like how landmines
Insane.
which is if you're putting them.
You're not transmitting.
I'm not transmitting. Damn it! I keep doing that. I'm agreeing with Night Owl on the drowners here on the basis of it's like landmines, and yeah, it's something that's just part of warfare that has perhaps some regulation to its use. Like the moment you start putting it in civilian areas, then it's a war crime.
Yeah, but it's not in and of itself. It's not a war crime. War crime is
Yeah,
targeting civilians.
it's the application. Also, gaming official, the project is designed for the fun of it, really. We're doing this because we want to make a setting with the community and have fun doing it.
Yep, I also talk about, just sort of writing topics in general, advice from my limited experience as somebody who loves writing, encouraging people to create. We talk about some writing foibles here and there. This week is a week where we're not doing a rant first, but in previous weeks, we've discussed various writing topics and elements of world building and the like, and what we think is good, what we think is bad. And the wonderful thing that we've seen through this project so far is lots of people have done art that might not have done art before and have done art for this, which has been wonderful. We'll be looking at some later. We've had people write things. We've had some wonderful green text stories. So we're just, sort of encouraging creativity and doing things and understanding the literary world from more of a sort of layperson's enjoyment than from a scholarly classroom environment. So. So this says, this is the first Friday I've had free in something like 2 years. I have no idea what's happening and it's glorious. That means we have hit the marks with this. That is the intent. We are here to have fun and make dumb stuff.
Yay, dumb stuff!
All right.
We are doing dumb,
We
crazy,
are.
somewhat criminal stuff.
Yes. I was saying to Diggs in the week that I am probably, a blight upon society and should be stopped. But he said, probably, but it's not our job to do so, so I should carry on. So I'm going to carry on.
Very good.
All right, our next one are SCBs, which stands for Supercavitation Bombs. Multi-stage explosives designed to decimate an immediate area when they go off as they flash boil everything in radius. Is it a war crime?
No more than a thermobaric weapon in real world is.
Again, how else would you kill people in the radius?
Just a
It's
weapon?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a
I
weapon.
mean,
War
Yep.
this is
crimes
how
is
you kill
used on
people.
cities.
Yep. I mean,
This is how
that's
you
what we're
kill
here
people.
for. Is it a war crime, or is it just normal part of warfare, or is it an interrogation technique? What are we looking at? So, not a war
It's
crime.
this is not even Prussian tactics, just bubbly tactics.
Okay. Right, our next one then is nitrogen seeding. A war tactic of passing nitrogen into an area to reduce the oxygen content of localized water and suffocate anything in the area.
If you manage to do that, you have my applause to bending gas diffusion. But if you do manage, my God, this is a war crime to my heaven.
This is the sort of thing where I was thinking you could probably only do it in small areas and would be absolutely devastating if unleashed in, say, a nursery.
That would murder only the it would murder the weakest and the slowest first.
Yeah,
Anyone who anyone who can swim away would survive.
it honestly sounds like a weapon purpose built to terrorize civilian populations because it's incredibly inefficient at dealing with
Do we think
able-bodied
it's
Shoal.
do we think it's too inefficient to be worth it? The cost would not be worth the result.
It would be worth it for your unhinged elements, your fringe terrorists, things that are
So something that belongs to perhaps the cult terrorist groups, because we do know we have a couple of cults running around on Shoal.
yeah. This
I
is a terror weapon, not a military weapon.
Okay.
the, okay.
What do you
Though
think, Lister?
again, I think it happened, and people are still having like this is the hallmark, kind of like suicide bombs
Mm-hmm.
are the hallmark of certain organizations.
Yep.
This is how you know that the people who are doing it are the worst.
Yeah. This is the hallmark of the bad guys.
Yes. In movies, this is what Double O Bubbles fights against.
007.
007. Yes.
Okay, somebody now needs to draw Bubble '07. I don't know what race he's going to be, but this will be amazing. I desire to see a spy Shoaly. Okay, so congratulations, whoever came up with that one. It's a war crime! Alright, on to our next one. Flood Titans / Renegade Titans. Enemy Titans, either with damaged or deliberately tampered with personality coral, or with their psionic interface inhibitors disabled, and a drugged pilot sent to wreak havoc on enemy lines. These Titans are unpredictable, uncontrollable, and utterly mad from either their pilot or their own systems operating outside normal parameters. Berserker was the term that was used in the write-up in the Orcs. I didn't use it here because, of course, we don't have Vikings on Shoal, so the word Berserker probably doesn't exist. But we do have the Titan Paragons, which are like, the ultimate awakened Titans, so that's why I went with Renegade Titans.
Okay. I approve. Essentially, driving a Titan mad is a war crime.
On her
Simple as.
on her Clamesty Secret Service. UNC Samurai, how dare you!
Hey, I thought it was pretty funny, personally.
It's wonderful.
Okay, so yeah, I think the idea of, tinkering with a Titan's personality matrix is just inherently a war crime yeah. So, yeah, congratulations, it's a war crime!
Yay! I mean, I'm thinking about infecting a Titan with some sort of a crab that eats into its bronze coral and slowly drives it insane.
Hold that thought, we've got some stuff coming up.
I mean,
Yay!
it sounds like the kind of thing you get in a Tom Clancy novel where you have somebody that hacks into an enemy unit, the enemy's smart vehicle or plane or drone to cause it to go haywire renegade. At which
Yeah.
point, that's just,
Oh
the
my
enemy
god,
intelligence service doing what they do and getting shisty about it.
we don't have the movie Moonraker, we have Moonraker instead.
Yes!
I hate you guys.
No. Oh no.
Baron of Jerpshire
Old
says,
flipper.
I feel it would become a war crime once Titans became more than simple vehicles. Yes, this is only going to apply once, awakened Titans become a thing.
Yep.
Cremo says, how are we this good at finding new war crimes? Yeah, Zork is responsible for a lot of these. Zork had a field day last week and came up with most of them immediately after last stream, which, concerning. Good job, Zork.
Zork understood the assignment.
He did. So let's read the next one. Our next one is ink shots. Large-scale travelling munitions that do not explode but instead dispense ink along their travel route. This ink physically blocks lines of sight but is also drawn from species resistant to psionics and thus dampens psionic connection and communication in its presence. A variant of this is the ink barb, a device which must be placed on a Titan, then when activated drills into its hull to deliver ink into vulnerable systems, either to weaken or disable an enemy mech. I feel like that's a normal part of warfare. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
That sounds like
From Luastra with
interference,
love,
ECM.
Eric, get out!
Yes. I mean, ECM is just ECM. So electronic
Normal weapon,
countermeasures.
legitimate weapon, not a war crime, normal weapon. Okay.
It's
a
more
combination-
legitimate than chopping someone's head off.
Yeah, it's honestly a combination of ECM and ECM and smoke. Not
Yeah.
really that outlandish.
All right.
Thermal smoke.
We
Yep.
will move on to our next one then, which are razor wire blankets, a surface-to-sea weapon. This is fired above a large area. At 3 miles above the target, the munition fires out weights in all directions, the largest range reported being 1 mile in diameter. These weights are all attached to each other with nearly invisible razor wire, creating a huge blanket over the area that begins to fall.
So I want to make a brief backpedal. Night Owl bringing up that the one we just said not a war crime, maybe not a war crime, but potential casus belli if used on communications in peacetime.
Yes, but that again is a normal part of warfare. The opening shot has to come from somewhere. But yeah, no, I completely agree.
That and unwarranted fuckery with civilian infrastructure is in and of itself grounds for people going,
This,
"Hey, fuck that guy."
Yeah. So
yeah,
this
it's
one I
usually
just
called
read out.
terrorism.
I'm crediting to both Grimos and Zork because you both had a similar idea I combined into one. So you are
I
both responsible for this.
I have a problem with the razor wire blanket thing. I mean, it's cool, but it is uh, unless used against civilians. And
I feel like if
I
it
mean,
was fired over, say, one of the migratory floating cities, where it's just going to be indiscriminate, that's a war crime.
Uh, you're only ever going to see it used against slow-moving uh, targets that can't really
but you
evade or
can,
avoid.
but you can evade and avoid it by putting up sticks.
Okay, that's fair enough.
You need to put sticks up like a few meters above wherever, and
Eric, we
then
weren't talking about it getting to a mile underwater. We were talking about the spread of how far out it can reach.
It sounds
so
like something that would have been experimented with, but would have been a dead-end prototype, which, there's
the
always room for stuff like that.
there's also the problem that the cutting power of even monofilament wires would be incredibly small because of they won't be moving too quickly. So what is it exactly going to cut? Are we imagining some monofilament that cuts like lightsabers through everything, or are we imagining something more realistic?
Okay, so do we think that this is possibly just one of those ones that needs to go down as just being impractical? It would have niche use case scenarios, and as a result, it's not therefore going to be regulated.
I mean, again, it sounds to me like it's something that somebody came up with and they tried to utilize and then realized the flaws
Yeah.
in the means, and then potentially got converted into a device of again cruelty rather than combat because yeah, Lichter brings up a valid point that it's not really going to cut through, but just throwing a blanket of razor wire on top of somebody and then telling them, "Hey, every movement you make, you're going to be cutting yourself. Have fun." I could see
Yeah,
it being utilized in
Yeah.
a much more messed up capacity of we're using this to make you suffer, not because we're trying to kill you.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
going. I'm going to take a perpendicular turn and say, what about a vehicle that runs very quickly and pulls a net? We are underwater. Remember trolling nets? Now
yes.
take one of those cutting nets and run that through an enemy.
Yeah.
That's bubbly Prussian tactics right there.
I mean,
Uh,
that sounds like a evolution of the chariot.
Yeah, Baron of Derpshire also said you could have engines that pull it along. So
yeah, exactly.
what we're
Once you
having
once you add
there,
an engine,
yeah.
once you attach an engine, it becomes a viable ow. Then again, if you can put a vehicle in your enemy's midst to to trowel something, you can also put a bomb there. So,
Yeah, it's very inefficient.
yes.
Again, I think it would be done more for psychological or just, causing suffering than actively trying to
Or
most
be an
efficiently
ancient
murder
war crime.
somebody.
Or it could be an ancient war crime. It could be
Yeah.
ancient.
Well, yeah, that's why I said it sounds like a evolution on the concept of the chariot. Have a chariot dragging a line and have two chariots dragging a line between them as you race along a enemy formation, and then watch as you just start lopping legs off, or at the very least breaking legs.
Yeah.
All right. I think
Or
we've
limbs.
explored that one as far as we need to for now. I'm sure somebody will come up with some way to use it in a story at some point that's sufficiently horrible. Let's read the next one. We have algal/fungal seeders. Biobombs for sea or land that disperse aggressive, fast growing spores, often bioengineered for maximum proliferation. These biobombs infect and supplant areas of food or other natural growth and replace it with either choking algae or mushroom trees, eradicating entire food sources or changing the oxygen content of the water to kill needed supply species.
That's a freaking war crime. Okay.
Yeah, that's war crime o'clock, hands down. You're directly attacking the civilian infrastructure at this juncture. Like, you're actively trying to cause non-military problems.
Congratulations! It's a war crime!
Yay!
All right. I think that one was just very cut and dried. That's a war crime. That is categorically a war crime and a crime against humanity. Yes.
That's messed up, man.
Heresy, since it promotes the fungal crown. Yep. We really need to get to a section where we can just look through all of Eric's excellent work on religion on Shoal, because he's done a ton of work on it and it's really cool. Okay, bioweapon too, so it's pretty indiscriminate. Yes, yes. Okay, let's read the next one. The Corruptor. This small, briefcase-sized device is used mainly in long-term terror campaigns. Inside is a small heavy water electrolysis chamber and an intake-output system. An agent will hide this device usually in abandoned maintenance areas or near water intake areas. The device, when activated, begins converting surrounding water into heavy water, intaking regular water and spitting out heavy water, sometimes through an attached hose. This begins to slowly poison the surrounding area, or if placed near the intake of a water system, the building it's near, eventually rendering it uninhabitable. The most effective uses of this method have been set up near hospitals and nurseries.
That's fucked up.
This is another one, I believe, that came from Zork.
That explains it. Zork
That-
seems to
that
be the
is-
master of the fucked up.
I mean, that's just usage of poison against civilian infrastructure. So yes, war crime, not because of its particular cruelty. I think that I think the important part to take from it, which is useful, thank you, is how Shoal's having a hard time discovering that. It's like using CO poisoning inside hospitals, which is generally considered to be rude, crude, and vile.
Yeah. Rather unpleasant.
Will
To the
thinks
point
it
of
should
being
go
very
in
addictive.
the impractical section because you can't make heavy water, you just filter it from normal water.
Yeah, I mean, you're dispersing poison into localized areas, and if you're using it as a tactic, well, you're an asshole, and you should not exist anymore. But that's something else.
You're the bad guy, and you need to go away now.
Yes.
Tungsten
Okay.
water.
Cut and dry.
Okay, so I mean, we're using. I have seen that people are talking about the differentiation between a war crime and a crime against humanity. There's going to be some crossover in some of these. We're just going through right now to decide, what would be, what wouldn't be, and how we use it in story. And once we set up what our political system is, we will have to have those refinements when this gets fully written up. But I'm not worrying about being that word specific right now, just while we're going through the suggestions you guys put in. But you are right. Crimes against humanity are always a crime. War crimes are only when they're done in a declared conflict. But for right now, we're just going to use a blanket war crime statement.
Yeah, I mean, poison is poison. Using it against civilians as a terror tactic is going to be considered crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
Simple as. I mean, it has no value in war beyond terrorizing civilian groups, which has its own value, but it's not a very big one.
All right, let's read our next one. Shrieking Memoirs. A mutation or corruption of Thames coral hidden within a reef. It leaks a psychic residue, causing night terrors, insomnia, and paranoia in an area, and can corrupt natural Thames coral if not pruned quickly enough.
By God. Again, you do not touch the coral.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my thinking, is messing with coral is just a big no-no.
Yep. I mean, willingly going up to the coral, especially the Thames coral, which is widely considered as the one true coral that everybody must put their hands on because this is money. Woof. Yeah, no.
Okay,
How about no?
I think that was a nice, simple answer there. It's just, yep, that's a war crime. That's a war crime.
Yeah, that's a war crime.
Yeah.
Now it's ShamWows.
All right, sensory deprivation chambers. They're self-explanatory, and of course, for the Shoaly, that includes psionic
Hold up,
nullification.
real quick.
Yes.
We've got a first-time chat. Flack Waffles, new here. What is this? So, Flack Waffles, you've stumbled into Lady Red's stream on Fridays on WBPL. This being a community channel that has a wide variety of people who stream a wide variety of things. And what we are doing is a particularly entertainingly messed up portion of trying to build a setting with the community, and from there, build a compendium so that stories can be written in this setting. We've come up with the world that this is taking place in. It's an undersea society and culture of different sentient species, and the whole concept is underwater mecha. The point we are at, since we discussed last week conflicts between species and states, is now what constitutes war crimes on Shoal. Shoal being the name of the planet that we're doing.
Yep, we have mechs, we have war crimes, we have crabs, we have a heck of a lot of radiation, and we also attempt to have some fun along the way.
Yes. So, if you take a look at the Discord link, Stormsong was very kind in doing all of the little bot commands to drop links, and follow it to the auxiliary, the public-facing wing of the Black Pants Legion. There is a channel dedicated to this where you can read up on everything that the community has come up with so far and figure out exactly where the heck we're at with all of this madness.
Okay, so people are feeding back on the sensory deprivation idea. Wolf says, well, that could be therapeutic in the right circumstances, which, yes, treatment for froth would be something it would be useful for. Baron of Derpshire says, not a war crime, but an information extraction method. This one should be information extraction, because in the right circumstances it can be a good treatment, but if misused... Tired German, as soon as we finish War Crimes, I will indeed show your image that you made and read out the description you did, because it's a very cool piece of art.
Also, Verathragna, I hate what I just saw that you DM me. Bubble 07 versus Octopussy.
Oh my god, get out!
God
Leave!
damn it.
How dare you!
You are a bad person for that.
Please, I would like to see that too.
Okay, so we're choosing on this one that it's going to be an information extraction, sometimes used benevolently for therapy. It's a use case if it's a crime of any kind. Okay, so our next one is going to be the crab boil. A bed of spiked electrodes is prepared among a large amount of methane gas, such as a natural deposit in the ice or an artificial reservoir. When the target approaches the area, the methane is released into the water, causing previously buoyant targets to rapidly sink. When the target is snared, the electrodes ignite the gas.
I don't understand.
How
What?
is the gas
So,
igniting?
I figure if it's up on the ice sheet, because a lot of ice on Earth has methane trapped in it that does escape. So if you had electrodes in a particularly dangerous part of ice on the surface, it would work. And underwater, it would be if you release methane gas, it's going to affect the buoyancy of certain creatures and they could plummet, and that could be an issue for them. But this could also be just impractical. Fun, but impractical. So you guys let me know what you think.
I don't know what to make of it, honestly.
That's fair.
I'm confused.
Whirling says, anyone propose a weapon that does seismic damage and causes volcanic vents to erupt? Yes, that was suggested. I haven't included it in this list because I'm very wary of giving our Shoaly the ability to cause eruptions on such a volcanic moon. We know we have a lot of volcanic activity. And how are we going to give the... I mean, we can't cause eruptions on Earth. How are the Shoaly going to do it on shore? How would we generate...
That sounds like something from the plot of a 007 movie where Gold
Yes.
Flipper is trying to do the bad
Which
thing.
I would love to have stories like that that are also fictional in setting, but I just couldn't think of a conceivable way that wouldn't have caused massive issues and probably wiped out society before now if we let the Shoaly have the ability to mess with tectonic forces.
Here's how I'll put it. They don't have nukes yet. They have horrible, terrifying bullshit stuff. They don't have nukes. And without an energy output on the scale of nuclear bombs of whatever sort, you can't geologically alter geology in such a fashion.
Yeah, how are you going to monkey with tectonics
Yeah.
without that kind of oomph?
Yeah, and once you start messing with tectonics, it's not like, okay, well, this will just happen in this localized area. No. If you're able to mess with tectonics on, say, like the Pacific Ring of Fire, it's not going to affect just one part. That's an entire system that's interconnected. And, oh, look, you've wiped out all of civilization. Good job.
The Ring of Fire.
Ring of Fire.
How
Yes,
can you nuke
I'm
an
sorry.
environment that's 99.8% radiation to begin with? That's why the Shoaly equivalent of a nuke is not a nuke as we know it on Earth. It's a quiet nuke.
How can you nuke it? I don't know. As the sun, they keep nuking. Stars keep nuking themselves even while being an ongoing nuke for the last few billion years. Don't worry, nuke is always an option. We're just
Nuke
trying to
is
figure
always
out
an
the
option,
other.
that's true.
We're trying to figure out the other options now. What can we do that's not a nuke?
All right, let's take a look at our next one and go from there. So our next one is the saline bomb. Literally a massive amount of salt released up current of the enemy. Past a certain point, water's too salty even for saltwater creatures to survive.
Fuck yeah.
The
That's a
Dead
war
Sea
crime.
Bomb.
Yeah, the Dead Sea
Yeah.
bomb.
I love the Dead Sea. It's so much fun to float in it.
I have not been there. It's something I would like to do, though.
You're invited.
Thank you. I will bear that in mind.
I will give you a tour.
Okay, so the saline bomb is just automatically a war crime, it sounds like.
Yeah.
War crime applied by Podland nations. That would just be just like the ultimate irony. Who invented the saline bomb? The snails.
Yes.
It would be very resource intensive, so this is not going to be the sort of thing that everybody's just got, 50,000 of them. Erica says all the nations are very salty about it.
But
This is supposed to be the war crime stream, not the pun stream. Puns is going too far. How dare you?
007 rejects.
All right, let's take a look at the next one. Our next one are corpse walkers. Minor mecha shock troops piloted by prisoners of war with their minds blanked from froth. Unlike flood titans, these mecha are not full titans nor are the pilots mad, but instead machines set to act as a screen for units behind them and inspire despair in the enemy. Corpse walkers usually have transparent canopies so the enemy can see their former comrades in the pilot seat as the walkers approach.
wait, so we're talking something that's using captives to...
Yup.
Yeah,
they're
no, that
thinking they're thinking necromorphs. Uh, I mean, okay. Do we have that sort of technology in here? That's a
Um,
question. I'm
well,
questioning that.
when I was thinking about this and how it would work in setting, because this is a slight tweak from the original write up, and yes, Zork, this is another one of yours. What I was thinking is this: if this is people who have been completely mind blanked from froth, I'm thinking that these are working mecha. They're not awakened titans, but working mecha that are going to be destroyed anyway. You know, they're deteriorating or whatever, and they're just set on an automatic walk cycle. And their literal purpose is just to be a demoralizing meat shield for whatever is coming up behind them.
sounds like Chinese warfare back in their, warring feudal states era of history, where they'd have prisoners just march up and slit their own throats to scare the ever living shit out of the other side.
Hmm.
I mean, it's scary. Yes, it's so labor intensive.
So, do we
How?
think this
Why?
is maybe something that happened during the early Forge Wars? And just is no longer practical, especially with the way that the economy and stuff works now.
Prisoner of war mechs in this economy at this time of year?
All I'm asking is, if you already have so many mechs available, so many materials, you're going to waste them on terror tactics?
There is that. All right, let's put this one to chat as a poll. We haven't done a poll in a while on this stream. Let's do that.
Yes,
So,
let's do a poll. A poll.
A
Love.
pole!
I love
corpse
Polish people.
walkers, are they too material expensive, or are they legit horrible terror tactic? I can't fit that whole thing in. Legit. Let's try nasty.
So a mix between a sonar ping and a bolt of lightning. That's a that's a combination right
All
there.
right, you guys are going to have 1 minute to vote. I am not allowing additional goop votes on this, so we won't have this poll stacked. It's going to be very fair. So, corpse walkers, are they too materially expensive and therefore we don't have them, or are they a legit nasty terror tactic and perhaps they've only been used in select conflicts, and we can figure that part out. So there's your poll. And while that poll's running, I'm going to leave you chat with Aiden and Lictor for a moment, and I'm going to go and use the restroom. I'll be right back.
My
I'm
God, that
telling you, don't tell anyone, but Lady Red is marginally mortal.
is marginally what?
Mortal.
Hmm.
Come on, Aiden. We need to keep the charade going.
I'm so confused right now.
Very good.
I don't know what's going on, man.
That's okay. Do you have a pump action shotgun?
Not on me. I do
Okay,
possess one. I just don't have it readily available.
that is fine. You don't need to shoot anyone at the moment.
Oh, that's good. I don't really want to have to.
Good.
That sounds unpleasant.
That depends. When you do need to, it's a very pleasant sensation of being able to do what you need to do when you need to do it.
You know, I will take your word for it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, I am back. What have you guys had to say? So, it's a legit
Only
nasty terror tactic, so that means congratulations! It's a war crime.
we need. Okay, this has to come with some sort of a religion or a group that is insane enough to think necromancy is a way to deal with.
We do have a religious sect that's based around that Eric has written up, so we have that in place already.
Oh, okay. Okay. Uh,
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
heck, I can see the necrothurge just looking at it and say, we are redeeming their souls by binding them to these machines and giving them a chance to earn their salvation.
We can
Why?
always expand on it later to do stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, next. I want my brain away from this particular train of
What,
thought.
you don't want to sit and stew on this for the next week and come back with an awesome write-up?
I have
With
enough
Zork's
PTSD of my own,
madness?
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, this is all Zork's fault.
Yes, Horse, thank you.
All right.
Oh God! Speaking of war crimes, Jesus dogs, why? Ugh. Ugh.
All right.
The dogs can do no wrong.
Let's move on to the next one because I'm aware that it's already quarter past the hour and we're still on war crimes. Good job, chap. All right, screamers. Anchored prisoners of war fitted with psionic amplifiers and injected with psychoactive drugs. Their pain.
What the fuck is with you people and weaponizing POWs?
Ask Zork, this is his fault. Their pain and any induced terror is broadcast over an area, so this is often used for area denial.
You read way too many Night Lord's descriptions from 40K. Okay, it's a war crime. Moving on.
Yes.
War crime and terror tactics. Yep. I figured that one would be pretty obvious where we are at with that. Okay, next one, pickling. A prisoner is lowered into a brine pool and left to starve inside the pool. Once the high salt content has dried them out into jerky, they are covered in sealant and used as an example. Similar to how humans paraded impaled people around, and this would also go for severed heads mounted on Tower Bridge in London to discourage other criminals.
That's just pickled sentencing.
I consider
not
this,
war crime.
just pretty severe law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean the Assyrians would have said that it was lenient to someone stealing. I mean,
To save time, if it
doing.
says prisoner of war, it's a war crime. Yeah, that would have made things a lot quicker, Wilf, but I don't think we'd have had quite so much fun along the way.
I will point out at least we haven't gone the whole Chinese or however you pronounce that horrifying thing when you pickle someone's own limbs and then feed them to that person to stave off starvation.
Yeah, that definitely would, yeah.
That's messed up.
Yes, don't you love Japanese traditions?
All right, and we've got one more we need to look at, and we will be able to move on to our next thing. We have shock lines, superconductive lines shot out or placed in an area, then electrified, shocking everything in vicinity.
Bubbling tactics.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like normal warfare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean electric eels, the weaponized version.
There was talk, the reason I didn't put it in here is because it was very similar, but there was talk of, bioengineering eels to do the same thing. So. Okay, so we consider this a normal war tactic. Okay, I did make myself a note of something that I wanted to do after we'd been through all of this, because, oh my god, guys, war crimes. You did very well. We had many war crimes. How many did we come up with in the end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Literally half of what you guys came up with are unequivocally war crimes. Good job. What's the Shoal equivalent of chocolate? Because I think we need some at this point. What's the Shoal equivalent of chocolate, chat? What do they have? I'm sad Nest Eater didn't get. It was very cool, and there was also a more one that was suggested. There was also the seismography stuff that was suggested. Some of them just didn't seem like they would necessarily be entirely practicable. So any that I didn't add in, we can always revisit later when we're going through further stuff, when we're writing stories. If people had certain ones they wanted to see and you have a story it should be attached to, there's nothing stopping you from bringing it into that story, and, potentially it will get canonized later when we have a use case for it. Nothing any of you suggested was bad. Nothing any of you suggested was uninteresting. They were all very interesting. I
I
just
will
picked
I will
out
counter
22.
that. A lot of what was suggested was bad. You
Okay,
guys are
bad on
fucking
a
monsters.
bad on a different scale to what I meant, but yes.
Y'all all need Jesus.
Tired German says Shoaly chocolate should be sweetened sponges. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Seaweed snacks, kelp snacks.
Chocolate takes a lot of work, is exotic, and requires extensive refinement. Um, here's it should be plant-based,
Okay.
yes, but it requires here's what I think. It's a very area and depth specific sort of a plant growth, fairly close to the equator near the shorelines. The trick to it is that it is processed with several enzymes to give it the buttery finish that is very hard to do without fat underwater. And they found a way to make the cocoa butter, which then is sweetened and added with other ingredients to make it into the what we know as chocolate. It comes from a very specific area. It's a plant, but then it is processed with the secretions and enzymes, kind of like the way they use certain stomach acids to make types of cheese.
So what I'm thinking to make Shoaly chocolate is it needs to be some kind of kelp-like plant that rise. It only grows in shallow water, but it does rise above the surface. And the pods that it forms on top, the flowering pods, that's where the beans or seeds that the cocoa butter is made from come from. So it's
Yes,
incredibly specific.
The beans.
And it
yes.
being beans makes sense. We have a lot of orcs beans here, so we definitely need some beans.
The
Okay.
Yes.
beans of the crop will rise to the top.
What? No, I didn't. Ah!
Do you guys? Do you guys? In fact, when I switch over to doing map stuff in a minute, I might show you guys a sneak peek of a rather large project I'm working on related to what I just said. We'll come back to that. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so here is your homework for this week, chat. Last week's homework was Warcrime. This week's homework is Shoaly sweet foods, Shoaly candies, and Shoaly drugs. We know we have Psy Pearls. What other recreational drugs should we have? That is going to be your homework for this week. Please post anything you want to vote on and look at next week into the Orcs Discord channel. I know we've got a few new people here this week.
Is it bad that I thought you just said side pearls, like side corn?
Psy Pearls. If you are not a member of the Discord, please do join up. It's a fun time over there. The auxiliary has something for everybody in it, and we have a Shoalnanigans channel. Please let me know. Should we name all the drugs after failed sitcoms? If that will bring you joy, hamster, you go for it. Water break. I will have a water break.
Yes.
Hail hydrate.
There we go.
Hail hydrate. You're not going to drink, you'll only fall.
All right, so that's our war
For every
crimes for
sip,
this
two
week.
two more will go down.
Originally, what I wanted to do this week was look over my more in-depth write-ups of our species, but I think with the time that we've used up already, that's going to take up a lot of our time, and we won't get as much done this week as I'd like to. And I really do want you guys to see the map and some other artwork that we've done. So if you would like to see the full detailed write-ups of each of our species, pop on over into the Orcs, look for the Shoal Resources channel. There is a link to the PDF in there, and you can read everything that we've written up so far, which includes each of our species. So if you want to get the full notes, pop on over there. Now, I said that we were going to do some palette cleansery stuff and we're going to do some map stuff. So for now, let me first bring up our wonderful Tired German, who has done a lot of art for the project. And I really need to start inserting his art into the compendium so you guys can see all of it at the drop of a hat. Or at least put it somewhere where everybody can grab it. Tired German has done us another illustration. This is an illustration of a podland mining operation. And as ever, I think it's absolutely wonderful. I'm going to read the description he wrote up for this piece. Let me click over here.
I can see it.
Okay, so the description that came with this piece. Deep in the mines of Shoal, Podlands survey, plot, and excavate sprawling mining complexes underneath the ocean floor. Often commissioned to extract precious minerals, building materials, or even artificial gas caves for industry, there is hardly no shoaly civilization that does not benefit from the Podland mining companies. Often employing cephalonid workers in these mining complexes, they have been the backbone of many an abyssal settlement and major economic force behind the nations of Shoal. These boom towns pockmarking the ocean floor are said to not just being a great boon for their employers, but are often a detriment to the surrounding area. As mining byproducts get dissolved into the surrounding waters, many of the older complexes have turned to brine pools and canals with heavy metals dissolving into the stagnant waters within. Envious tribes of shallow water shoaly often joke that the dry lands happened because the Podlands mined so greedily that the ocean sea level just sank below ground someday. Rumours are spread that the sea level sinks another metre each time the snails open up another mine. I am very tongue-tied today, I'm sorry. Yep, the
It's cute.
snails are great miners. That is definitely a thing that we have.
Yes.
I love how Tired German draws the Podlands. They look absolutely fantastic. And I just love the fact that you can envision the conversation they're having here. It's got a lot of dynamism in this piece. I really, really like it.
The one looks like he's holding a large chicken drumstick, and I appreciate this.
Yes.
So
Chicken.
yeah, the Podlands mine salt. Well, we do know they're responsible for the saline bomb, so yeah, they must be mining the salt. The little one trying to eat some algae. Yeah. It's a great piece. Alright,
Yes.
so I need to pop my drawing glove on, and we need to pop on over to pop on over to CSP momentarily. What I'm also going to bring up for myself in Scrivener is the barometric notes that I made for what we have where. Because I will need these because I know I'm going to need to
You mean
move around
the
some stuff on the
bathymatic,
screen.
right?
Yes. Right.
Bathyspheres.
Turn off
Bathyspheres.
our Podland mining, and I'm going to turn off Scrivener, which should bring up Clip Studio, and you guys will get to see where we're currently at with the map. And all of the labels are in the wrong places because I haven't had a chance to move them around yet, so we're going to do that. Right,
Yes.
let me bring this up so I can see. Can we slip a Dr. Zoidberg reference or three in for comedy? I'm sure you guys will find a way to do it somewhere. We've got 007 happening now. You can't be trusted, chat. You cannot be trusted.
Nope. No trust for chat.
Nope. Right, let me zoom in just a little bit over here and move some things around because I have stuff in the wrong place.
Oh my god. Now I've just got another bad idea.
Of course you do.
For because one of the shows that I remember from a kid that I rediscovered via Mystery Science Theater was Radar Men from the Moon. So, Radar Fins from the Tomb.
No.
Because what Tomb, the gas giant, just tickles me in places.
Oh.
I said it was a dumb idea. I didn't. Full
My
disclosure,
neurons.
happened. I was very
my
honest.
neurons. Yeah, yeah. No. You're. I want to say you're fine, but honestly, are you? Are you really?
The jury's out.
Right, this makes a bit more sense now. Now, the only downside we have is that contrast-wise, we can't see what I've written. So let me do something about that, and then we will talk about what we have where. Make things just a little bit easier to see. Oh, I really need to get myself one of those handy doohickeys that Squick's friend told me about. Right, there we go. We should be able to see most of this a lot better now. There we go. Okay, so we have some places that we know already need to be in our setting because they've been mentioned before, or they were part of our very initial world building that we did right back in weeks 1 and 2 of building Shoal. So things that we established that we know we have. We know we have 2 land masses, the northern landmass and the southern landmass. We know that we have a channel that runs between them that's particularly dangerous to navigate. We know we have our 2 polar ice sheets, and we know we're going to be putting the forge cities near there, so we'll do that shortly. We know that we have the crag-bound sea, which is a volcanically active region that spurts out islands, and then those islands slowly disintegrate as they move across the ocean surface. So they're very small islands, which is why you can't necessarily see all of them, though we do have a couple of crag islands that you can see. Lots of strong whirlpools and rogue currents.
Are you suggesting islands migrate?
Yes, tectonics exist. We know that we have the Crimson Wall, which, although it's blue-coloured on here, that'll get fixed at some point. It should be red-coloured. It's where red bioluminescent plankton flourish. You can see it from space. There's a lot of lore that goes around that for coral shrines being there. It's where a lot of strange dreams and vision sharing happens. We've got that. The Abyssal Crescent is where we have a big, deep, sweeping trench that goes into the abyssal depths. It's also where deep bronze grows, and it's one of the few stable abyssal zones where the deeping whales live. We have the Starburst Shoals, which is a shallow, reef-rich area. It's one of our very shallow areas, and you know, got some nice temperate stuff there. Maybe that's where our Shoaly chocolate comes from.
Chocolate.
We also know we have the Mist Veil Sea, which is cloudy underwater, misty up on top of the water. And our final area we know we have is the Stormlance Sea, which is known for its lightning storms. So we've got all of those on here.
Yes.
I have a list of major reefs that need to be slotted in. And we also obviously need to put in where we want some of our nations and cities to go. So that's what I was hoping to do with you. Where's Furthest Point? Furthest Point is on my list. We need to decide where we're putting it. We know it's probably going to be in one of the volcanic regions, so probably at the northern cap or the southern cap.
What did Grimace do? What? Pistol? What did Grimace do?
No, this is just how they normally say hello to each other. Don't worry about it. There will be an accompanying pistol in a moment. There it is. It's from Giant German, though.
Yes. Okay, fine. I was worried.
Are boats actually a thing on Shoal? Yes, they are. Although humanity has a lot more need to rely on boats than perhaps the Shoalese do, we do have Shoaly that live on the surface. We have some land-based Shoaly, though they will have all started out underwater. So we have a lot more submersibles than floating stuff, but there will be floating boat cities, effectively. You could do additional maps that cover migration patterns of fish and other animals. Yep, that will probably happen at some point as we'll look at that. At the moment, what the intention is with this is the colour of the text will indicate how deep or shallow a feature that's being described is. And we're also going to put some regional dotted lines that sort of show, you know, where national control might be, or where psionic areas might be, areas that are particularly psionically strong in one area or another. But at the moment, we just wanted to get some initial locations down and give you guys a visual reference of what's where, etc., etc. And this is something that Lichter worked on all last week while I was busy. Mo, we could always use help in making things worse, though this week's homework is much nicer. I want you guys to invent Shoaly candy and also recreational drugs. I'm sure nothing can go wrong with asking you to do this.
I have one already, but we'll wait.
Yeah, that's your homework for this week. Pop it over in the orcs and let me know what you guys come up with.
I have one already, he says.
Look, I've been playing enough Eclipse Phase to make drugs that are weird to a fault.
Do the Shoaly smoke
Okay.
seaweed. Guy on Broadway. How could you? Pearl powder.
Okay,
We know we
Ghost.
have psionic pearls that are a thing that can boost psionic activity, but can also induce froth. So we do have that. But if you want to do other things with pearls, then that would be very interesting.
Ghost, when you said when you initially let in, I thought you were saying that somebody made a actual follow-up series in Meat Space about this. Now I understand.
All right, let's take a look at some of the things that we know we need to put in. So,
Already four-posted in the Discord.
this does not surprise me. Last week I was like, okay, I've set some homework. You know, people are going to come up with some war crimes. I think we'll get a couple of responses and they'll probably trickle in a couple of days' time when people have had time to think about it. I clicked over to the orcs and there was like 10 ideas already. Like, holy crap, guys. All right, so some major reefs that we need to go in. So we have the Sulayan Reef, which is where Sulayan itself will be, which we already know is going to be the initial capital city of the Solatians. We know this from the war stuff we discussed last week, and although there's some tweaks to be made there, that part of it I think will remain consistent for the War of the Split Shoal. So we do need to put that into place. And at the moment, I was thinking that it might be really interesting to have the whales and sharks based out of the deep trench in Serpent Strait. And I would put, let's use a nice bright purple so that it can be seen. I would put Sulayan, I'm going to need a layer I can do this on, around about here. How do you feel about that, chat? Let me zoom in a little bit more because we can. There we go, because we don't need the polls right now for discussing this.
So
zoom in a bit
the
more. This
Sulayans
will be the
are
area I'm looking at.
again the Sulayans are the
Sorry,
cetaceans.
the Solatians, yes. I don't know why I said
The Solatians.
Sulayan. Sulayan is what the capital will be named, but they are the Solatians. So
These
this is the
guys
whale and
need
shark people.
yes,
Request from
these
Tired
guys
German to zoom into the highlighted area when you place
I
capitals.
just zoomed in.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that these guys need more ocean. This we don't have a scale yet for this,
Mm-hmm.
Matt, but these guys need a lot of space because they are a multi-organism system.
What?
They
Being
also
in a,
big.
I don't think the map is that tiny. I think that there's enough space in there. Yeah, that's a great spot because they
So,
have
what I
access to the trench. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say what I really want them to have access to is really deep water for the sake of the whales. So, do we put them over here? Do we put them over here where we've got this reef system that's going to be growing along there? Where do we think?
Away from the red waters. Way
Away
away
from
away.
them. Okay, so maybe over here? Because we
Away
can
from-
always add more reefs in.
Yeah, no, this is an excellent location. I mean, remember having your first city, your largest city is often a case of tradition,
Mm-hmm.
and cities grow and die over time. And migrating and migration and between cities, having two cities instead of one, especially for a race that's so used to fragmented mentality of this thing is over here and this thing is over.
Yeah, we
Communicating
can
and
certainly
time.
put in more Solatian settlements in a minute. At the moment, I'm just working through the ones that we know we need to have in, and then we can start adding in the extra ones that we think should also be there.
Okay, so what I'm saying is don't put a single spot, put a cluster of spots and call the entire territory that one city. It's not a It's not a walled city. It's a cluster of locations because these guys work in clusters. They don't work in a singular entity, not in a city or not a personal base.
Okay.
Does that track?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you
We
understand
will
why
have.
I'm saying that?
Yes, absolutely. And we'll have every opportunity to adjust this and make it look fancy and etc. as we go on. I just want to make sure we get the sort of big ticket items marked in because that will help us to continue our world building. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. It will be a cluster of places.
Okay.
Introspective 90, I think we know that Shoal is about Earth sized. Or it's Earth and a half. I can't remember which. I would have to go back and look at the wonderful animation that Ninja Turtle did for us because we do have an animation of Shoal in orbit around both its star, its gas giant, and with its sister moons. Because we have fantastically clever people in the Legion and the Orcs who do wonderful things.
I am not among them.
That's not true.
That is a blatant lie.
Shoal is a moon, right? I was commenting on the planet it orbits. Oh, fair. I'm sorry, Introspective 90. Shoal's planet. Yeah, it's more sort of Jupiter-sized. It's huge. Luastra is absolutely massive.
Okay. So this cluster number one.
Yep, that's going to be Sulayan will be there because we know we need that.
Yes.
We
Forge cities.
we will need the Forge cities. Do you want to put those in first? Or do you want to go through the other couple that I know I need before we move on to that?
You're the boss.
You know what? The other ones, I can fit those in later because they're not as critical. So yeah, let's do the Forge cities because we know we're going to need some of those. We need to figure out how many, and I also want to locate where furthest point is going to be. So for context, for people who don't know, furthest point is something that was suggested last week by a chat member. It is a location they wanted to add. I'll read you the description. Furthest point is located at the furthest edge of the ocean, directly within a massive field of volcanic vents that make it almost inhospitable due to heat and pressure. It is a massive lava tube that is completely full of crab craftsmen and artisans. Legend says that due to their sheer exposure to the bounties of the earth, they boast the greatest craftsmen in the world. In actuality, the truth of the legend is that simply having ample access to the resources gives access to ample practice time. Those who first founded Furthest Point were rather ornery even for the more taciturn ceratinoids, preferring their own company and cooperation over the peculiarities of other forge cities. The plain of volcanic vents proved an incredibly deadly place to live, with very little food that wasn't near those same vents, often encouraging the ceratinoids of Furthest Point to devise extremely strict resource maintenance and gathering. Along with the fact that due to their more isolationist focus, causing Furthest Point to grow much larger than one might think, as vast caverns are carved out for singular craftsmen to use for their own projects. Often populated by their recognised adult offspring, with their countless uncared for soft shells left to their own devices, and to harvest for materials should the environment take them. So it's going to be a sort of pseudo-forge city all its own of isolationist ceratinoids who just want to be left alone to do their own thing, is my understanding from that.
Yep.
Okay, let's move up to look at the north because this is where we're going to start putting in our forge cities. All right, I don't remember who came up with furthest point, but I'm sure they are in chat. Do you want them to be in the north or the south? And once we get the answer to that, we'll figure out where furthest. Okay, Introspective 90, is furthest point in the north or is it in the south?
Saying biggest volcano is a matter of season.
Where's the most inhospitable?
Okay, I'll tell you that.
I think Introspective 90 that if we want inhospitable, being near the southern polar cap, that we've got a trench down here.
Yes.
I
Near the
reckon here is going to be a really dangerous area because this is also in the Stormland Sea, so it's got a lot of lightning storms and the like on the surface. So I'm thinking somewhere along that arc might be where furthest point should be.
I would go so far. Okay, could you zoom in on that arc?
I sure can.
I would suggest the at the very top of the arc, at the center of the banana.
So sort of around here-ish.
No, no, back to the middle of the banana.
Okay, let me just make the mark and then I'll
Yes,
move
The
it.
banana.
yes,
So over here-ish.
yeah. It's a nice little spot. It's deep. It has corals near it, and everything around here is fucking terrible. It's
Okay,
like
so
you,
we will make this.
it's deep, isolated, and fucked up.
That's where furthest point is going to go.
Yes. This is where ceratinoids go when they feel like normal ceratinoids are too friendly.
Okay, so we now know where furthest point is. All right, our forge cities. How many forge cities do we think we should have? And what's the spread going to be between north and south?
There need to be enough for them to credibly have a major conflict like we were describing.
So the forge cities don't necessarily go to war just with each other.
True, but we were talking about the Forge Wars kicked off because the Forge cities started slapping it out with each other and it pulled everybody else
And
in.
also just needing resources. So yes, I do think we should have a significant, a significant's the wrong word, a fair number.
Oh boy, introspective. Not crab misfits, crab hermits.
I don't have anything useful I can throw at you right now.
Okay. Here's my suggestion. Bearing in mind this is map based, not story based yet.
Mm-hmm.
Along the northern area from the Misthail,
Miss Vale
I
C,
think,
yep.
Mistville Sea, you see there's below the northern trench, there is a line from west to east that is relatively shallow.
This line here.
Yes. This is the this is the main transition line of resources. Essentially, imagine the Silk Road,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Going from the northeastern major two forge cities in that massive coral reef, the northern coral reef over there,
Mm-hmm.
plop down two cities over there. Then there's a sort of a Silk Road going from east to west, and then it goes through around the northern continent until it gets to Celea. To Celea, it essentially transitions most of the world, and this is the northern road. Okay, then there's the southern road running straight on top from southern where text is. There's also a that goes from
Yeah, because
north to
what's going to
south,
stop us from coming round this way is you're going to have to go through the Cragbound Sea, which is dangerous, and the Crimson Wall, which is dangerous. So yeah, you've got your
which
one
is
route that way.
the western route is essentially no, or was a no when these things
Mm-hmm.
happened.
Yeah.
And so you have the eastern route that goes from south to north in the middle of the map, and the snake line along the relatively shallow space
Mm-hmm.
along there. And there's the northern route. So the largest city is in the Mistvale Sea.
Okay, let me go back to city colours. So we're going to have a nice big city over here.
Yes, exactly. You see that trench over there, the very top of the Mistvale Reef?
This one?
There's a small trench there. No, this one. Yeah, this is where the first Forge City uh was made. It probably got abandoned because the water were too cold and it was hard. But
Mm-hmm.
It was further perfected and then made into a real city. Then there's the second stop, where between the green woods, the long road, uh, there's a second city, and there's a third city right at the left top of the abyssal crescent. This is transitional city. This is not forge city. The third forge city is down um, southern polar cap. There's the woods southern polar cap
Yep.
at the northernmost reach of that triangular outridge, right?
So sort
50
of.
pixels. No, down. Next to the polar cap. Yeah, somewhere around here. Right? And then we have the trade routes and the locations of the major cities, and these are dotted with sub-cities.
Okay. Let's see what chat has to say for a moment. Hospitality was intended. Western routes will be the smuggler's trades because of high risk but faster delivery. Yes, so let me put in a different colour over there. Because you'd have the ability to cut through what's thought of as the safer areas, but this is going to be, I'm just going to call it the pirate route for now.
Excellent.
Okay, let's see what else have we got. Call it the forgery road. Narrative description furthest. Yeah, okay. Not uncommon for crews to disappear near furthest point, presumed eaten by the locals. That's fun. Okay, so we've got, at the moment, we've got 4 massive forge cities. I do think we need to maybe have one that's up in this deep trench up near the northern polar cap, simply because of the resources that would be available there.
Cool.
And we know that we've got, because the lava tubes that are underneath the polar ice caps will extend out into the water underneath as well. So I'm going to put, let's see, where am I going to put it? I'm going to put it over here because it's then on the edge of that shelf drop away and there's a reef nearby. So I think we should have another major one there, and maybe that moves this one just a little bit further over. Oh god, I've grabbed the wrong thing.
That's good.
Move this one just a little bit further over so it's maybe sitting sort of there-ish, so they're not too close together. But that could be the reason for the initial conflict, is because these two were too close together and squabbling for resources. Okay, anything that chat has to say where you think things should be? Shenanigans is already full of ideas. Oh god! I might not get to them until this evening or tomorrow. Looking at the time, we are coming close to the end of stream. Would you guys like to see a sneak peek of some of the stuff that I'm doing that you're totally not supposed to know about right now?
That's a very bad question. The answer is always yes.
So one of the
Licker's
things I've
right.
been working on is not this Sunday, but next Sunday is Solstice Slam. So we have a new Solstice Slam poster for WBPLW. Again, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. But I might just also be working on a new PNG of our WBPLW hosts. That's a thing that's happening, and you totally haven't seen because it's not finished yet. And I am also working on some stuff for digs that will come out towards the end of July. Let me see. And this exists, which you are definitely not seeing.
No, we do not. Avert your eyes.
I did say I would show you. I would show you something that was related to Aiden making comments earlier. For those of you looking for the Shenanigans channel in the Orcs, it's under Creative Writing. It is a thread in there. So go down to Creative Writing, and you're looking for general Shenanigans and ideas. If you cannot find it, DM me on Discord. the_lady_red if you need to find me, and I can directly link you to it. And if you're after anything from me, I know somebody was after the song that I opened my stream with from me. I'm always available in DMs on Discord, and I will point you in the right directions. Yeah, creating writing endeavours. Thank you, Zork. It's a thread in there that you will find what you are looking for. If you can't find it, DM me. I will give you a hand to move you over there. And yeah, we are about 5 minutes from the top of the hour, so technically we are supposed to be wrapping up. And I will continue working on the map now that we've placed some of our initial stuff. We know what our initial trade routes are. We know where some of our things are going to be. We've decided where furthest points should be. I will try to get this map updated a little bit more, probably by Tuesday. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself because I do have this big project I'm working on for digs, and I want to make sure that I give that the attention it deserves. So by Tuesday, I will try to get a copy of this map up for you guys to see, and then we will have further look at it next week and put in our other capital cities. I do not know where these 2 hours go. I swear we've only been here for like 20 minutes.
Into the place where fun originates.
Warcrimes. That's where it went. It all went
Yes.
to Warcrimes.
Yes, it went to Warcrimes. That sounds about right to me.
Yeah, we'll start next week with candy and drugs, and then we'll do some more map making and carry on from there. Time does
That's
fly when we're having
a
fun.
fucking statement.
I
We'll
know.
start with candy and drugs.
Yeah, we will.
Yes.
Remind me that needs to be my title next week. Starting with candy and drugs.
Candy and drugs. Look, you can't always have. You need to balance it out. You can't have just.
Yeah, we can't have just war crimes. We do need to have nice things sometimes.
Yes. You need a reason to do war crimes, though.
Okay, so as we're getting ready to head out, I've had the GoFundMe at the top of the page in chat linked for the whole stream. If anybody has a little bit of spare money that they would like to put towards a good cause, the ranch that we got pipped from is going through a very hard time due to an act of God that descended on their brand new barn dominium. They are looking to replace the roof so that they can have all of their beagles back in the best of accommodations and recover from a very serious financial blow. All of the details are on the GoFundMe page. They are wonderful people. If it means that, you know, we don't have a hype train on Sunday, so be it. I know that the people over at Quail Ridge would really appreciate, you know, even a few pennies going their way. However, please do not open your wallet if you are not comfortable doing so. Do not put yourselves out of pocket for anything that I ever mention here. It's there for if you would like, and if not, and you have somewhere you think you can share it that might be of benefit, please do so. Please do share that GoFundMe around, and thank you to everybody who, you know, oh god, Lord Grimo says I have made a drug for legal reasons. This is a joke. Yes, please do not perpetuate drugs or war crimes in real life. We only do them on fictional ocean moon worlds where we can then also make very cool mecha to throw around and have a good time.
Only on moon place.
Yes, nowhere else.
Moon.
All right. Thank you, Aiden and Lichter, for joining me. Thank you, chat, for your wonderful input as ever. I will see as many of you as possible on Sunday for WBPLW, and you can vote all your goob away. And yeah, we'll be back here next week for more chaos. Anything you'd like to say, gents?
Moon.
Well then, with that, we're going to get out of
Moon
here.
Star of Mern.
Tex and Depp will be with you in about half an hour. Have a good one, folks.
Bye.
Pond. James Pond. 007.